Oh, hi. Apparently, over the weekend, Bad Bunny hosted Saturday Night Live. They claim hosting the show, they took a dig at Donald Trump. This is kind of one of those if a bear poops in the woods moments. You know, you're not really being insulted if you're not watching, right? Like Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel insults you. If nobody watches Jimmy Kimmel insult you, he didn't really insult you, did he? Hey, you know, last night we had a lot of great patriots gathered together at Bad Astronaut Brewing Company, raised a lot of money for disabled military veterans, and there were a lot of people there. People from, Don Huffines' team. A lot of Michael Berry listeners are there. Wesley Hunt supporters were there. Ken Paxton supporters were there. And a lot of people that we met a couple weeks ago when we were doing a rally for the Stratford High School kids. And for those that don't know the story, I'll tell it very quickly. A bunch of teenagers inspired by Charlie Kirk's death decided to go start a Turning Point USA chapter at Stratford High School. And a Democrat Party member from Spring Branch decided to dox a bunch of high school kids. This became a national news story, blew up overnight. The Attorney General got involved in a rally, myself, Michael Berry, thousands of people participated. It was huge. But the whole thing started when some really concerned parents from a group called Moms for Liberty called attention to it. It all starts at the grassroots movement. And frankly, I think this interview is long overdue. One of the people that was instrumental in making this into a national news story was Denise Bell. Denise Bell is the chapter chair of Moms for Liberty in Harris County. Is that correct?
That is correct, Kenny. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's really awesome having you here today. Moms for Liberty, for those that don't know, started in January 2021 in Florida when a mom named Tina, two moms, Tina and Tiffany, started in response to COVID-19 school policies. Isn't that correct?
That's right. These are two former school board members, Tina Deskovich and Tiffany Justice, who are seeing all kinds of infringements on parental rights. And so they banded together, started the organization. The first two chapters were in Florida in their respective counties, and then it mushroomed to over 100 chapters across the United States in that first year. And today we have over 300 chapters of Moms for Liberty. We're so proud of that.
So much has happened over the last 4 years involving education and parents and politics.
Yes.
We really saw a shift from the left to the right when it came to voting about education.
Yes.
Back in the late 20th century, if there was an election that was affected by education, it almost always benefited the Democrats.
Right.
And then the pandemic happened, and we all know 2020 was a weird year, but almost immediately after that, Glenn Youngkin ran for Virginia governor, and he was talking about all the same stuff you guys are talking about.
Right.
Trans ideology, critical race theory indoctrination, shaming, lining up all the fifth graders and based on their skin color and having the white kids apologize to the indigenous kids.
Right.
None of this is helping anybody get a job or get prepared for life.
Right.
It's Marxist indoctrination, and that's the whole point of Moms for Liberty.
That's right. And actually, this has been going on for decades. I think it's just been in the past few years that parents realized where we were and how bad this was. And so if there was any silver lining from the pandemic, I think it just helped to expose a lot of these issues in education. And once parents saw it, they were upset, and rightly so. And we have to continue to push back against this agenda. We cannot be complacent because it has been going on for so long. There's so much to unravel and fix within the public education system.
We are live streaming this interview while we're on the radio on KPRC 950. We're also live streaming on the internet, and someone just informed us there was an issue with the sound. I hope I fixed that. But just to get everybody caught up here, Denise Bell's from Moms for Liberty, and they're pretty upset about the fact that there are Marxist indoctrinating kids in public education, which is very frustrating. I mean, I think so. So what exactly are you guys doing here in Houston right now? Since the Stratford High School thing, a lot's happened with your group, right?
That's right. So Moms for Liberty in Harris County is almost 2 years old. I and some other ladies launched the chapter a couple of years ago, and I'm really proud of the work that we have been able to do since then. We focused in a lot of different areas, but overall, we just want to raise awareness to the parental rights infringements happening locally here in Harris County and across Texas. And actually, there are quite a lot. Some of your listeners may have heard about us last February when I spoke at an HISD school board meeting when there was a parent that asked us to speak on behalf of them to inform the board that their child was being socially transitioned in HISD without the parent's knowledge or consent. And so that was one of the bigger stories that people may be aware of, our chapter. But there's a lot of different things that we do. We've spoken at lots of different school board meetings across the county. There's 25 school districts in Harris County, and we try to pay attention to all of those. We have members and some of them more than others. But some of the issues are inappropriate content in the schools, sexually explicit books, Marxist propaganda, and then the whole child movement, which is whole school, whole community, whole child, or WISC is the acronym that people may be familiar with. And that includes things like social emotional learning, health centers on campus, which goes above and beyond just having a nurse. That's like having an actual doctor on campus, either through telemedicine or in person, whether it's for mental or physical health. And those are big, big infringements on parental rights right there.
All right, there's something coming up here called Banned Books Week, and I'm always confused by this because I live in America. There are no banned books.
That's right.
There are books that we restrict from having children access, like pornography, for example.
Correct.
And I know, this is the left will tell you, there's comic books about how to have gay sex. It's it's a biology book or whatever.
Right.
But I feel like it's not.
Right.
And why does a 5-year-old need to look at that?
That's right. And there is no such thing. I'm so glad you said that. There is no such thing as a banned book. In the United States, you can buy or borrow any book that you wish. Nothing is banned. But when we're talking about the removal, or when we're talking about schools have a right and responsibility to remove books that are not, number one, educationally suitable, or if they are pervasively vulgar. And those decisions were handed down by the Supreme Court in a court case called the PICO Supreme Court case. And all schools have that right and responsibility. We have to make sure books are age appropriate for children. Every book ever written is not appropriate in a school, right?
One of the examples they often give about a so-called banned book is the Diary of Anne Frank. They'll tell you, like in Florida, they say they banned the Diary of Anne Frank. And they didn't.
No, they didn't.
There was a graphic novel version of the Diary of Anne Frank that included a lot of sex stuff that was unrelated to the Holocaust, unrelated to the war, hiding, or anything.
Right.
And it's my understanding that that specific book, that version of Anne Frank's diary, was removed from elementary school libraries, but that they could still access the normal Anne Frank diary. Why do they need an animated version of Anne Frank's sexual fantasies in a 5-year-old's library? What's the point of that?
Right. We actually see this issue with a lot of different books. There's Anne of Green Gables has actually a graphic novel that is a same-sex storyline. So oftentimes,
wait, I'm confused. What did that have to do with the original story?
Nothing. But this is what's being pushed into the schools. There's I believe another one, Louisa May Alcott, one of her, but I think Little Women actually has a graphic novel with a same-sex storyline as well. So graphic novels are a big issue. Graphic novels are being introduced into the schools as a way to get kids interested in reading, supposedly. But a lot of other concepts are brought into these stories. Stories are rewritten. And so you're absolutely right. The graphic novel that had to do with Anne Frank was the book that was removed from the school, not the original work.
All right. In the meantime, it's not just about public education. Netflix. I think almost everybody I know has a Netflix account. At least a lot of people do. And apparently there's a show on Netflix called Dead End, Paranormal Park. It's an animated fantasy about a transgender person. And it's for preteens. They say kids age 7 years old. What, have you looked at this at all?
I have heard about this. The Marxist agenda includes family abolition, and to abolish the family, abolishing the family is important to them because that's the only way that you can usher in a new form of government. Is if you have weak families, you're going to have a weak society, right? And so family abolition includes things like destroying the gender binary and destroying gender roles. And so these ideas are fed to even very young children to try to change the social fabric that we have in this country. And it's really disgusting how this plays out in entertainment, in gaming, online gaming, and also in books, music, movies, everything. It's terrible.
All right. I feel like there was about 5 years, from the late part of Trump's first term right up until, I don't know, probably 2023, where this was just normal, unquestioned. If you brought it up at all, people looked at you like you were a fascist. Any crazy ism or igot or whatever term they wanted to use to describe you would get bigots and transphobes and whatever kind of phobe you are. And then the pendulum switched, I feel like. Is it getting better?
I think it is getting better, but what I want parents to understand is that, Trump being in office is wonderful. The executive orders are wonderful. The laws that have been passed this past year, like SB 12, the parental rights bill, SB 13, which helps with getting inappropriate content out of our schools. Those are all great things, but we can't sit back and just go, oh, it's all fixed, because it's not. Parents have to stay engaged, and change happens at the local level. It's very important that parents in their individual school districts are paying attention to board agendas, board elections, what's going on in the classroom. I can't tell you how many times I have found issues in my own children's classrooms, and I can give you some examples of that.
Yeah, just give us a Cliff Notes right now, just a few things.
Okay, so my oldest child, when she was in AP US History, and this is something I've talked extensively about online and different podcasts, but she was in this class that taught the difference between socialism, capitalism, and communism. Socialism and communism are both Marxist systems, obviously,
sure, yeah.
But communism has a negative connotation, right? And the Marxists know that. So socialism sounds nicer. And socialism has actually gone up in terms of popularity. More Democrats view socialism in a positive way than capitalism even today. But in this class, there was a chart that compared the three systems, and socialism came out as the winner, not capitalism. And the examples from this chart that I can give you, the students learned that the treatment of the poor and needy under capitalism was that the poor were exploited with help from some. That's what students learned about capitalism. In classes, students learned about capitalism that classes are strict with limited mobility. And of course, socialism, for both of those categories, talking about classes or talking about the treatment of the poor, looked good. Like it created the middle class, the treatment of the poor, poor were treated well. So these are just seeds that are being planted, small ones, one at a time, that over time create big shifts in ideology for future generations of Americans. And it's a problem.
Socialism was, as most of our listeners probably know, invented by the Marxists as a means to an end. It was supposed to get you to communism.
Right.
It was never supposed to be a permanent system. It was supposed to be a way to go from one system to the other. But really, socialism is, I like to say, when you have nothing and you want to share it with the world.
Right. That's absolutely right. The means of production change to a very few centralized group of people that have all of the power and the wealth. Socialism is never going to provide the utopia that they claim it will, and history has proven that over and over again.
Capitalism, on the other hand, has provided us with iPhones, airplanes, helicopters, life-saving medication, prosthetic limbs, running water, electricity.
Right.
I can't really, other than the AK-47, what has communism given us that has any value?
Right, nothing. Nothing. It's a road to nowhere. And unfortunately, our children are being misled, and there's generations of Americans older than Gen Z and Generation Alpha that's in school right now, obviously, that are pro-socialism. I don't understand it at all, but we need to recognize that our tax dollars are paying for children to learn the pros of socialism. And it's happening across the country.
I did a little research on you using AI. I don't know if you've ever done this, but in April of 2024, you went to a Harris County School Board meeting and you talked about what girls are made of. You called it pornographic, and it was available in our public school libraries.
Yes.
February of 2025, you went to a Houston Independent School Board meeting, and you talked about people, social transitioning at Bel Air High School. April 2025, you addressed Pearland ISD School Board about sexually explicit books in the libraries. We talked about how Texas House Bill 900 passed in 2023, but there was still pervasively perverted vulgar material in the school. And then March 2024, you were at a fundraiser for Kirk Cameron and Brave Books, and you are out there doing this all the time. Is this the kind of thing you encourage other parents to do?
Absolutely. I really felt compelled and called around the time of the pandemic to speak up. I could no longer be silent. And the issue that brought me there was my own. I have 4 children, and at the time, one of my children was 10, and he was assigned a book to read in school called Dragon Wings, which is actually not a bad book, but it's just not appropriate for 10-year-olds. This was not a library book. He was assigned to read it. In the book talked about brothels, prostitution, opium dens, and referred to whites as demons.
Yeah.
So from a young age, my children have had this oppressor versus oppressed, framework that they're being taught in school, and the sexually explicit material. And it's just really sad. It's taking their innocence away. It's breaking down barriers. It's putting topics in front of kids that they're not ready to handle, nor do they understand. And it's really breaking people down. And I think part of this, we see mental health issues. Certainly this isn't the only reason for mental health issues skyrocketing, but it's not helping our kids.
It certainly isn't. No, Democrats and liberals will often say that their political party is the party of science, and then they'll tell you that a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old's ready to have a conversation about sex. I feel like science has already answered this question for us. There's a time and a place to talk about this, and that time is right as you're beginning puberty. That seems really, in the late 20th century when I was growing up, that wasn't controversial. I would imagine you don't need to teach a prepubescent kid about gay sex. On the other, it's a fine line. I mean, a high school kid, maybe a college kid certainly could learn about that because they may have some exposure to it. But I think this is common sense stuff, Denise. I can't believe it's even controversial.
It is common sense. And when I was in school, it was really more of a biology lesson, you know, and kind of factual information. Today, what's happened is we have comprehensive sex ed. In the state of Texas, we have more abstinence plus. But I think some schools are really pushing the boundaries of this. But certainly across the United States, we have comprehensive sex ed. And what that does is it brings in a lot of discussions around pleasure. It could include things like kink, alternative lifestyles, gender ideology. There's no reason that a child needs to learn. I hope I won't get in trouble for saying this, but what anal beads are, or
you can get away with a lot on this station. You'd be surprised.
I hate saying it, but there's no reason a child needs to know what anal beads are or a butt plug or something like that. And these are actually things that are being introduced into conversations with children by adults. And of course, we've all heard the news reports of very young children having lessons on pronouns and gender and whatnot. And it's awful. I mean, this is a travesty that we're allowing this to happen to our kids.
Yeah, if there's an 8 or a 9-year-old with a fetish, I think that's just a bad parent, right? There's no two way, like a terrible parent. If people want to join Moms for Liberty, if they want to get involved in the work that you do, what do they do?
So you can go find us online. Just the easiest way is to search us on Google. If you put in Harris or Moms for Liberty Harris County, you'll hit our portal, and from there we try to always keep the most current information up there. I just posted our October chapter meeting, which is going to be on October 29th at 12 p.m. Anyone's welcome to join us, even those that might disagree, as long as you're respectful. But we do have a limited space, so I encourage everyone to RSVP quickly if they're going to do that. And then you can keep up with us from that website. And then Moms for Liberty's big website, momsforliberty.org, has lots of great resources for parents. You can learn about all kinds of different topics, the ones that we've discussed today and many more.
I love that. Denise Bell, Moms for Liberty, thanks so much for being here. To everybody watching us on social media, share this video if you don't mind. Coming up in a little bit, Congressman Wesley Hunt is running for senator. If you missed our interview with him this morning, stick around. We're going to have it in just a little bit.
Thanks so much.
The pursuit of